Welcome to the Monday, May 17th, 2021 virtual session of the Lake Forest City Council. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Certainly. Honorable Mayor Pangilian.
Here.
Alderman Morris.
Here.
Alderman Karas.
Here.
Alderman Rummel.
Here.
Alderman Notes.
Here.
Alderman Preschlack is absent. Alderman Goshgarian.
Here.
Alderman Bushman.
Here.
Alderman Weber.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. In accordance with state statute, I have made a determination that it was not practical or prudent to schedule an in-person city council meeting because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is why this May 17th, 2021 city council meeting will be held remotely. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. The first item on the agenda is reports of city officers, comments by the mayor. My first comment is to introduce a resolution of sympathy for former Alderman Roger Moore. I'm not sure how many of us on the council knew Roger, but I can say for myself, we became friends through our shared passion for the city of Lake Forest. Roger was truly larger than life, and when he entered a room and spoke his first word, everyone knew that they were in the presence of a unique and powerful individual. Yet he was always jovial, warm, positive, and extremely thoughtful. He made a huge contribution to Lake Forest over many years, and I will miss his counsel and his friendship. We have a formal resolution which I will read and vote on, and we will vote on. Whereas, on behalf of the city of Lake Forest, the city council expresses its profound sadness at the loss of Roger J. Moore at the age of 89 on May 6, 2021. And whereas Roger's love of and pride in the city of Lake Forest was evident to all, his quiet enthusiasm for the community was contagious and inspiring. And whereas Roger served as 3rd Ward Alderman from 2000 to 2006, and in that role dedicated time, energy, and passion to serving his constituents and the entire Lake Forest community. And whereas prior to serving as Alderman, Roger served on the Plan Commission from 1994 to 2000, and as its chairman from 1999 to 2000, and led that group through many long meetings and careful deliberations. And whereas after retiring as an Alderman, Roger continued to serve the community in many ways, including as a member of the Senior Resources Committee and the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Senior Citizen Foundation, and by attending countless board and commission meetings, often offering enlightened words of wisdom. Whereas when studying an issue, Roger left no stone unturned. He gathered the facts, put aside his own opinions, and worked diligently to bring all parties together for a fair and open discussion. Whereas Roger was larger than life, but he was humble. His presence at the council dais and in other settings was impressive. His deep voice resonating through a room and making all present stop and take notice. Whereas Roger was kind and respectful of his colleagues, of those with opposing viewpoints, his fellow residents and city staff, he took time to recognize the efforts of others and offer praise, encouragement, and a thank you. And whereas in January 2016, Roger, along with his wife Pauline, was awarded the Lawrence R. Temple Distinguished Public Service Award, recognizing their extraordinary community service and unwavering commitment to protecting, preserving, and enhancing our community. And whereas above all, Roger was devoted to his family, his adoration of his wife Pauline was evident to all who saw them together, and he often spoke with pride of his 5 children and grandchildren. Whereas Roger Moore leaves, his lasting legacy in our community will long be remembered for his contributions to Lake Forest, and more importantly, as a friend. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Lake Forest, in session on May 17th, 2021, hereby expresses its deep regret and sincere sympathy to the members of the Moore family. Be it further resolved that this resolution be appropriately inscribed and conveyed to the Moore family, with a copy to be included in the official minutes of the May 17th, 2021 meeting of the Lake Forest City Council. I would ask for a resolution to approve this resolution of sympathy for former Alderman Roger Moore.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second?
Do we have a second? Okay,
Second?
roll call vote, please.
Alderman Morris,
Aye.
Alderman Karas,
Aye.
Alderman Rummel,
Aye.
Alderman Notes,
Aye.
Alderman Goshgarian,
Aye.
Alderman Bushman,
Aye.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
7 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. Alderman Goshgarian, did you want to make a few comments here?
I did, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I just want to reach out and express my deepest sympathies to Pauline and the family. Roger was a friend to my father. I went to high school with his daughters, Kristen and Mary. Kristen was in my class. Roger was helpful for me at pivotal points in my life in Lake Forest and was very encouraging when I ran for my first term. I sat for many hours with Roger over the Knollwood Club, spent some wonderful time with him. He was a true gentleman, a public servant, and a kind human being. And he will be missed. And again, I would like to extend my personal sympathies to the family.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a review by Fire Chief Pete Siebert of the swearing in of firefighter paramedic Samantha Hiller. Pete, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, you guys got me on audio there?
Yep. Audio and video.
Okay, good evening. Yeah, gotcha. Thanks. Just wanted to thank everyone to rec our newer moving out to the fire station and swearing in Samantha Hiller, one of our probationary firefighters who's now sworn in as a full firefighter paramedic with our force. It was definitely a challenge recently to do these swearings in, not in the council chambers, and we're very hopeful that in the near future we'll be joining you for our next one. But I want to thank everybody for their patience and your help, Mayor Pantaleone, and especially our administrative assistant, Jamie Nixon, who puts together what the ceremony looked like. I know they can show us, so thanks again.
This is a great day for Samantha. Starting, the beginning of your fire service career, I think, you started with us on probation, but now moving ahead, you've got a lot to learn and keep growing. It's not the end of the road, it's the beginning of your career. You've done a great job so far of getting to paramedic school, fire academy, and heard nothing but good things from those people. Recently, I think you did a fire apparatus engineer course, so the sky's the limit on what you're going to learn. We've got your oath here, I've got your helmet shield on and your badges. I did think it was worth mentioning that somebody that's so into hockey that maybe a Pat Foley reference that her number, 333, for those that are Hawks fans in the building.
I, Samantha K. Hiller,
I, Samantha K. Hiller,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Illinois,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Illinois,
and the ordinances, rules, and regulations of the city of Lake Forest.
and the ordinances, rules, and regulations of the city of Lake Forest.
I will faithfully discharge the duties of the position of firefighter paramedic
I will faithfully discharge the duties of the position of firefighter paramedic
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
I further swear
I further swear
to uphold the mission
to uphold the mission
of the Lake Forest Fire Department
of the Lake Forest Fire Department
and work to fulfill
and work to fulfill
its vision to the best of my ability.
its vision to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. This last year's been awesome, and it's been, it's had its ups and downs, but you guys have been there for me the whole time, and I just appreciate all your support from each and every one of you. I look forward to a number of years with you and a long career here, so I'm very excited. Thank you, guys.
Any further comments, Pete?
No, that's all I have for you tonight. Again, just really appreciate the chance to bring this forward to everyone.
Well, it's one of my favorite things to do, and it was a pleasure to do it for firefighter paramedic Hiller. So, thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
The next item on the agenda is 2021-2022 board and commission appointments and reappointments. We did some of these at the last meeting. I have quite a few more here tonight. So I'll just read through them. For the Cemetery Commission, John Anderson is being appointed as chairman. Robert Wayne and Lowell Dixon are being appointed as members of the commission of the Cemetery Commission. Historic Preservation Commission, Steve LaMontagne and Janet Gibson are being reappointed, Ward 2 and Ward 3 respectively. The Legal Committee, Joe Waldeck is being appointed as chair of the Legal Committee from Ward 1. Paul Sundberg is being appointed from Ward 3. David Michael is being reappointed from Ward 2, and Elizabeth Joy Scott Mueller is being reappointed from Ward 3. The Library Commission, Jim Clifton is being appointed from Ward 1. Sue Shattuck is being appointed also from Ward 1. And Heather Strong is also being appointed from Ward 1. Park and Rec Board, Kevin Carden is being appointed from Ward 1. And Patrick Marshall is being appointed from Ward 3. The Plan Commission, James Moorhead is being reappointed from Ward 1, and Stephen Douglas is being reappointed from Ward 1. Zoning Board of Appeals, Lori Rose is being reappointed from Ward 4. Lisa Naring is being reappointed from Ward 3, and James Moorhead is being reappointed from Ward 1. The Senior Resources Commission, Fred Montgomery is being appointed from Ward 3, and Ed Richardson is being reappointed from Lake Bluff. Board of Police and Fire Commissioners, Nancy Taubensee is being appointed from Ward 3, and Richard Price is being appointed from Ward 1. And the Housing Trust Fund Board, Don Schoenheider is being reappointed as chair from Ward 3, and Charles King is being reappointed from Ward 2. I would ask for a motion to approve the mayor's appointments and reappointments here.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Karas?
Aye.
Alderman Rummel?
Aye.
Alderman Noakes?
Aye.
Alderman Kashkarian?
Aye.
Alderman Bushman?
Aye.
Alderman Weber?
Aye.
7 yeas, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. For my last comment, I wanted to just quickly bring everybody up to speed. Actually, we lost one of our aldermen to this event, to the aftermath of this event this evening. Yesterday, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., on a Sunday, the city, Lake Forest Schools, and Lake Forest Lake Bluff Vaccine Buddies hosted a follow-up local vaccination clinic at Deer Path Middle School to administer. Initially, the intent was to administer the second doses for the group that was first inoculated 2 weeks ago. In addition to the over 400 second doses of Moderna vaccine that were administered, the city was able to secure close to 300 doses of the Pfizer vaccine to offer to local 12 to 15-year-olds. That was a new opportunity that popped up in the last 10 days or so. The event, even with the added logistics of having a second vaccine and 700 people versus 400, went very smoothly. Much of that success was due to the professionalism of the doctors' test centers and the dozens of volunteers in the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Vaccine Buddies program who spent their Sunday basically their entire Sunday on a beautiful spring weekend, assisting in a variety of different roles at the event. We are very fortunate to have these partners in our community to help us continue to offer local vaccination opportunities to those who seek it. With Pfizer's vaccine now approved for ages 12 and up, many families have questions about vaccinating their children. So this Wednesday, May 19th at 7 p.m., I will be joining Lake Forest Schools Interim Superintendent Dr. Connie Collins to host a Q&A on vaccinating students with Northwestern Medicine pediatrician and medical director, Dr. Michael Bauer. We're still accepting questions from the community and will do so until noon on Wednesday. So please check our website and social media for more information about this event. And there's one quarterback for all this in the city, from the city, who really was the linchpin of making this happen, and that's the Assistant City Manager, Mike Strong. So thanks again, Mike, for a flawless execution with lots of different constituencies. Mike had it so well organized that he didn't even have to be there. So thanks again, Mike. Great job on these. And I guess there's going to be at least one more to come, because now we have all those 12 to 15-year-olds that need to be given their second dose.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is Mike. Just to follow up on that, a lot of players, obviously the schools, the vaccine buddies. We had several staff, a lot to name, but June 7th, Monday, June 7th, which follows the end of the school year, will be the last event there. So more to come on that, and I'm sure we'll release more details on Wednesday with other opportunities for the public if they're looking for vaccine opportunities. So stay tuned, but thank you.
Great, thank you. That's all for me. I will turn it over to the city manager for any comments he may have, and I know he's got a couple.
I do. Thank you, Mayor, and members of City Council. Good evening. And first, let me just say, Mayor, I appreciate the acknowledgement for all of the efforts of Mike Strong and other city staff in putting on these events. Really, people don't always appreciate the sheer amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to coordinate these things, but it really was an impressive effort. So hats off to all of them. So as we've noted, I think many times at these meetings and elsewhere, one of the distinguishing characteristics that makes Lake Forest such an amazing community is the sheer number of nonprofit organizations that may have very diverse missions, but really all contribute to enhancing our community's overall quality of life. And we routinely find opportunities, usually in the community spotlight section of the agenda at our council meetings, to highlight some of these organizations and all the wonderful work that they are doing. And in some cases, like tonight, we even have annual events that have become a tradition here with the city. And so one of those annual celebrations comes courtesy of the Deer Path Art League and their recognition of emerging artists here in the community. For those unfamiliar, the mission of the Deer Path Art League is to spark, nurture, and enhance creativity and promote general community interests in the visual arts. And one of the ways that they do that is by celebrating young artistic talent in our community through the annual Emerging Artists Awards. And my first year on the job, I had the pleasure of being able to watch this play out in person. I'm sorry we're not able to do that today, but I'm sure by next year we will. So this year, as I understand it, marks the 67th year for the annual Emerging Artist Awards. And tonight the league is here to honor 34 students who are this year's recipients of the annual Mayoral Emerging Artist Award. And so with that, I'm happy to introduce Cecilia Lannon, the Executive Director of the Deer Path Art League. Cecilia will share a brief PowerPoint that showcases all of the emerging artists' artwork, and I'm sure she'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have at the end of the presentation. So real quick, before I turn it over to Cecilia, I'll just conclude my comments by offering our congratulations again to all of this year's recipients. And again, while we wish we were able to celebrate with everyone in person, we're still thrilled to be able to honor all of the artists for their incredible talent tonight. So with that, Cecilia, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jason, and to everybody here tonight. As he mentioned, it's the Deer Path Art League's 67th year, and it's actually the 14th year we've done the emerging artist exhibit. I'm just gonna share my screen now. Here we go. Can everybody see this? Okay, so this is the 14th annual Emerging Artist Exhibit. Typically, this show is hosted at the gallery in Lake Forest. Because of COVID restrictions this year, we had to mix it up a bit. And we approached the storefronts within Market Square to see if they would be willing to lend their window space to the schools so that we could do this show in a way that families and teachers and students could walk around outside while enjoying the artwork. And as you can see here, we had almost every business in Market Square agree to lend us their store space for the entire month of April. So the community spirit and involvement was just so wonderful, and the response was overwhelming from the parents and family. We have 14 storefronts, and this is a map of what we ended up sending out to all of the families. And I just wanted to do a special shout out to Philip Ross, who's one of the Deer Path Art League's board members, who did all of the design work for these, the map and the marketing. And also a special shout out to Michelle McDonnell and Linda Shawley, who helped coordinate this entire show. We ended up having nearly 200 pieces of artwork from 11 schools in 14 different storefronts. So it was a much different approach this year, but really amazing. Now we're just gonna go through the schools here. We have Lake Forest Country Day that was on display at the Starbucks in Lake Forest. Winners were Emerson Buechner, Lindsay Stone, and Jordan Uden. Deer Path Middle School with the teacher Maria Galuzzi was on display at Evereve. Winners were Caitlin Miranda, Catherine St. Amand, and João Afonso Rodriguez. Deer Path Middle School with teacher Michelle Patch was on display at Kittles. Winners were Matthew Lyon, and this is actually created using Skittles, which is very cool. Daniel Coots, this was created using rice, and Amiko Chichester. Lake Forest High School was on display in Talbot's. Ellen Rowlandson, Caroline Gashgarian, and this is actually origami, which is stunning, and Joe Balmelli. Everett Elementary School, on display at the Forest Bouderie. And I'd just like to mention that the Forest Bouderie was very generous, giving us every one of their storefronts to be able to display the artwork in it. So winners were Elizabeth Priest, Thomas Haas, and Ava Katsiopoulos. Sheridan Elementary was also on display at the Bouderie. Winners were Gail Anaya, Jackson Rogers, and Caroline Collins. Cherokee Elementary, also on display at the Bouderie. Winners were Jojo Pelletier, Molly Windle, and Joss Warner. Lake Forest Academy was on display at the former Say Space. Winners were Annie Plombeck, Will Collins, and Kelvin Osborne, and this is actually a glass piece. School of St. Mary's is grade school and middle school, so we used our display in a few different storefronts for them. So William Sonoma, M on the Square, Jay McLaughlin, and the Lake Forest Shop. Winners were Mary Faith Melsheimer, Catherine Hansier, and this is actually a 3D piece. The giraffe's nose is three-dimensional. And Cormac McEwen, this dog is also three-dimensional and stands on his two front feet, which is very cute. Kinderhaven Preschool Academy. On display at the Lake Forest Bookstore and the Federal Reserve Savings Bank. Winners were Emma Case. This is inspired by Starry Night. As Rabel and Hunter Norman. And Lake Bluff Middle School was on display in Lululemon. Winners were Adelie Wagner, Megan Lonizak, Jordan Miles, and best in show was Ava Davis with this 3D dragon piece that she built and sewed from scratch, which was very cool. And a special thanks to all of the participating schools, storefronts, and students for their beautiful artwork, and especially the City of Lake Forest for celebrating young talent in our community, especially with the Mayoral Awards that really encourages them to keep creating. So thank you so much to everybody for supporting us in our show, and we are very much looking forward to seeing all of you at the Art Fair on the Square this Labor Day weekend. Any questions from anybody?
I have a question. Will these emerging artists' artwork be displayed over the Labor Day weekend at the art show?
They will not. No, all the artwork goes back to the schools and back to the parents of the respected students.
Okay.
This is Jed Morris. I really enjoyed walking around Market Square and seeing the art in the windows. And I would hope that you could do it again next year. I know you've done it in a gallery before, but it's nice to have it out in front of the community where you can actually get up close and personal and enjoy all the different grades and different schools. It was really terrific.
Thank you so much. And based on the feedback we've received so far, including all of the stores, it seems like that's hopefully what we're going to be able to do again next year.
Great.
Well, thank you, Cecilia. I appreciate your time this evening, and congratulations again to all the award recipients. There's some pretty remarkable exhibits in there. There's a lot of very talented artistic children in this community. So thank you for sharing that with us tonight.
Did we have a family member of one of our aldermen involved here and awarded?
We sure do.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, my nephew August, kindergartner, had a piece. He's very artistic. I've made gingerbread houses with him, and he's very thoughtful in his placement of things. So it was very exciting.
Oh, great.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I can assure you that the talent
Thank you.
flowed through my wife and not through me.
Your talents are different. I'm sure she's not as good at straightening teeth.
Thank you again, Cecilia.
Thank you so much.
So for my next item, I'm thrilled to introduce Todd Nahigian, Croya manager, who is here to update the council and the community about Croya's upcoming 40+1 anniversary festival. And let me first give credit to Croya staff and participants who weren't going to let a global pandemic last year stop them from recognizing 40 years of providing support to the youth in our community. And so while the party may have been delayed a year, I have no doubt it will be just as special for all of those able to attend and for the hundreds of kids who have been part of Croya since its inception. And before I turn it over to Todd, one small PSA, I'm pretty sure he's on the call, but I do have to make a note that our very own Public Works Director, Michael Thomas, a lifelong Lake Forest resident, will be playing at the upcoming event with his high school band. So for anyone eager to watch MT belt out some Springsteen covers while playing the drums, I think this is your one and only opportunity. So I have no doubt he's blushing somewhere on the call or at home. But anyway, with that plug aside, I'll turn it over to you, Todd, for more information.
Thank you very much, Jason, and I appreciate being part of the meeting tonight. Thank you to the mayor and city council members. Always great to be here and be able to share something exciting that Croya is doing. As we've just begun to hear the lessening of some of the guidelines and restrictions, the timing couldn't be better. I'm going to share my screen and show you guys a few things that are going on in the Croya world. Can you see a slide about the anniversary festival?
Yep.
All right, so 40th plus 1 anniversary festival will be held this coming Sunday, or in 3 weeks, Sunday, June 6th from 5 to 9 p.m. The exciting thing about this is that June 6th was the actual day that City Council commissioned the Croya Board as a member of the City of Lake Forest Boards and Commissions and began Croya 41 years ago from June 6th. So we weren't able to celebrate back in the 40th year in 2020 due to COVID. Our hope is that it's going to be a very exciting opportunity for people in the community, the youth and families, and even members of Croya from many years ago to participate in some really fun times. We're looking forward to having 4 rock bands that are going to play on a stage at the Croya parking lot right in front of the facility at 400 Hastings Road. 3 of the bands are members of the community who actually got their start playing in the Croya events back in the 80s. Bushwood, you may very well know, does a lot of touring in the local area. Mirror Images is Michael Thomas's band, as Jason just referred to, and Rollover is all over the place in the local community. But what's been fun is that these bands either played in Battle of the Bands, they played at the Summer Jam down at the beach, or they played on a Croya float in the Lake Forest Day or Lake Bluff 4th of July parades 40 years ago. And that's the exciting part of this. And then we'll have the final band, Flame, which is our current youth band, some of which the kids are graduating soon, and they'll be the headliner for the event. We ask that people RSVP at Croya.com through the Eventbrite software. There's no cost to attend this event. It's not technically a fundraiser, but we are looking to celebrate and really enjoy a wonderful time. This happens to be the day after the high school graduation. If there had been rain, or if there was going to be rain on Saturday, June 5th, they're going to put the graduation on the next day, and that's why we had to start as late as 5 o'clock. We're hoping that everybody will come. This is a copy of the current Croya 40th anniversary magazine. Our own Alderman Jennifer Karras was a huge part of putting this together with our Croya Foundation. We're very proud of it. This will be handed out for free at the event on June 6th. And anyone that's not able to attend, all they have to do is contact us at Croya, and you can get a copy of this wonderful booklet that commemorates 40 years of not only the support for the youth in the community, but the adults that really provided for those things along the way, and showing some of the beautiful experiences that the kids have been able to take on. My last slide here is the Croya mural at Illinois Road and McKinley Roads, done by Tommy Quinn, a 1999 graduate from Lake Forest High School. This mural was done as an extraordinary partnership between the city and Croya and artist Tommy Quinn from many years ago, who was the one that painted the viaduct mural in 1999. Many of you will remember it was a play on the Edward Hopper Nighthawks print that really stuck out in many of our minds as one of the best murals that had been there. This project can be seen on video, on a speed up video on the Croya website. And there's also a good amount of opportunity for us and alumni that come through the community to go see the mural and see what kinds of things Croya has represented over the years. So I appreciate being here. I hope you'll all think about attending on June 6th. And if you have any questions, I'm able to answer those now.
Todd, it's Alderman Weber. Thank you so much. I remember my brother back in the day got his start with bands with you back in high school. But a quick question. I saw on the flyer that masks are required, and with the change of the governor's recent announcements, is that still going to be required than masks for this event?
Yes. So by being part of the city, and we're really just making sure that all the youth and all the people that are participating are safe. Between now and June 6th, there could be other announcements, but I think what we've got going at this point is that let's just all make sure everybody stays safe for June 6th as we move into that final phase, maybe another week after that. But thanks for the question. Oh, and I really enjoyed working with your brother back in the day.
Todd, I can't remember if you had planned to have local restaurants have tables and offer things to eat and drink.
Yes, good point. So in the slide, it did say live music and food. The food will be local vendors selling food, kind of like a Taste of Chicago venue. And the hope is that we'll have a number of groups from the local area. Because it's from 5 to 9 p.m., we expect that some people won't have had dinner yet, and they can come and enjoy the music while also eating. We'll have tours of the Croya facility, which will be really exciting because there's so many people over the years who've been part of Croya, probably haven't even seen the Croya Student Union when we added on the huge 3-story facility back in 2007. So we have a lot of opportunities to have fun, and really looking forward to just really be able to celebrate the history. We're going to honor a couple of our founding members that have really taken us through the last 40 years and are still members of the community, as well as honoring Frank Farwell, who was an alderman at the time of Croya's inception, even though he is passed. But the opportunity for us to really recognize what we've been able to accomplish is really exciting. So thanks a lot.
Well, if there are no other questions, then Todd, thank you for the update, and we look forward to seeing you out there in a few weeks.
Awesome. Thanks again for having me. Take care.
Thanks, Todd. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Next item on the agenda is opportunity for citizens to address the City Council on non-agenda items. Members of the public can provide public comment by calling the number on the screen here, 847-810-3643, or by choosing the raise hand option on Zoom. So while we're waiting here for a minute or two to see if we have any comments from the public, I'd just like to mention that this information was shared when the agenda was published, and it is also posted in City Hall.
Mr. Mayor, we have no public comments at this time.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, there are no raised hands at this time.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is committee reports. These are just reports. This is just sort of an update, but there is a report from Finance Committee Chair Alderman Morris about local government distributive fund issues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to make some introductory comments, and I'm going to ask Director Holub to bring forth some detailed discussions about the proposal. This is a resolution that the staff prepared, and it's a little bit in kind of a pushback to the governor's proposal to reduce our revenue sharing allocation from the state by another 10%. As the council may know, over the last number of years, it's gone from 10% and it's eroded now down to 6% in terms of the revenue sharing. And now the governor wants to reduce it by another 10%. So this is an effort to push back with other communities around Illinois and in northern Illinois, say that's not acceptable. We needed to get it back to 10%. So I'm going to turn over to Director Holub to give you a little more detail.
Thank you, Alderman Morris. Hopefully you can see the graphic here on your slide, because this has been a complicated last 11 years. So as was noted in the write-up, the state of Illinois has shared income tax receipts with local government throughout Illinois since 1969. And that partnership and that shared revenue came out of a desire to not allow local governments to impose their own local income tax. So as a compromise, the state has shared and did share 10% of collections from 1969 through 2010. And you can see on this chart, during that time period, the individual rate varied from 2.5 to 3%, and the corporate rate was 4.8%, when that 10% share was provided to local governments. In 2011, the state increased the income tax rate to 5% for individuals and 7% for corporations. And at that time, the state modified the formula unilaterally to 6% for LGDF, ensuring that local governments did not share in the additional revenue from the increased tax rate. You can see that applied from 2011 to 2014. Beginning in 2015, the temporary increase in the tax rate sunsetted, which set the rates back to 3.75 and 5.25 for individuals and corporations. And at that time, the LGDF rate was increased to 8%, again, to kind of neutralize the impact and ensure that local governments received what they were receiving in 2010, but not more, based on the additional revenue being received. And then the last 4 fiscal years, so as a reminder, the state's fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30. So state fiscal years of 2018, 19, 20, and 21 have all had an individual and corporate income tax rates of 4.95 and 7%. And the state has used the formula of 6.06% for individual income taxes and 6.85% of corporate income taxes to be shared with local governments. You can see that in the individual fiscal years, the state further modified that formula. In state fiscal year 2018, the reduced rate was further reduced by another 10% to 90%. In state fiscal year 19 and 20, the formula was increased to 95%, and in state fiscal year 21, 100%, but again, of that 6.06/6.85% of collections. And then, as noted by Alderman Morris, the governor's proposed state fiscal year budget for state fiscal year 22, again, moves that back to 90%. And that would equate to approximately 1.8 million for the city in state fiscal year 22. And then just as a point of reference, we had a lot of discussions about the income tax. There was, as you know, the referendum in November of 20 for a graduated income tax that had just failed when we had our November budget workshop. So there was concern about how the local government distributed fund would be affected by the graduated income tax failure. And so we initially budgeted 75%. We ended up increasing that to 80% for the city's fiscal year 22 budget. And so what I did in the right column was just show you the projected annual revenue under those different formulas. So we budgeted 1.6 million for the city's fiscal year 22. The 90% governor proposed would actually be better than forecasted in the budget at 1.8. The 95% used in state fiscal year 19 and 20 would be 1.9. 100% would be 2 million. But most remarkably, if you go back to the top line, and if that 10% allocation that was applicable from 1969 to 2010 was reinstated, that would actually mean 3.3 million in revenue for the city in fiscal year 22. So you really see the effect of the changing formulas based on the increased income tax rates that have, again, not been shared with local governments. So we have presented to you on the Omnibus agenda a proposed resolution to join efforts of the Northwest Municipal Conference, the Illinois Municipal League, and other local governments throughout the state to petition the state to reconsider and go back to that original 10% allocation. So again, that proposed resolution is on your Omnibus agenda, but we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
Questions from folks? Alderman Bushman.
Thank you, Alderman Morris. Elizabeth, could you put that last slide up, please? In your last column there, the FY22 revenue, other than when we were talking about the 2022 state fiscal year, are those actual revenues that the city generated, or help me there in terms of what we've been actually experiencing in revenue generation from the LGDF over the last couple years?
Sure, absolutely. So actually the revenues shown in that far right column are not historical revenues. Those are actually revenues that would be forecasted for the city's fiscal year 22 budget under the different formulas. So we have, I think, the highest income tax revenue we've ever received has been about 2 to 2.2 million. And so that began to fall as we saw economic changes in recent years. And so we're forecasting, I believe, about 1.9 million to receive in fiscal year 21 closing based on normal income taxes. But as we talked about in the COVID-19 updates each month, because the unemployment stimulus has been afforded those impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, those revenues were actually significantly up for everyone in the last year. And then as that stimulus goes away and phases out, we'll be back to normal collections. So I hopefully answered your question there, unless you have a follow-up.
Yeah, and also how do you predict the upcoming year, whether with the stimulus going away, but the economy coming back, where the offshoot is? Although one other comment I think we should share is, I understand it, the governor is trying to sell his proposed 90% number by saying he's going to do away with some loopholes to generate more revenue to make up for that. Am I correct in that understanding?
Correct, and thank you for making that point, because that was part of the discussion in November, is that, or in March at the operating budget workshop, was that, we talked about increasing the 75% assumption, but to what? And there was concern because the 90% proposal with the governor's proposed budget does include and incorporate the closure of a number of loopholes, with the expectation that that would increase overall income tax collections to the state.
Right. Obviously, that remains to be seen, but I do remember the discussion on the 75, 80, or 90%. So happy to see at least it's 90% and not 80%.
Thank you, Alderman. Insightful as always. Thank you. Other questions from the members of the council? If not,
I'd like to just add a little editorial comment. Elizabeth said something at the beginning that's really crucial here. This was instituted in 1969 because municipalities were talking about creating their own income taxes. And they would have done that had this not been agreed upon. So this is just a way, there should be just a way for the state of Illinois to deliver the same revenue that the cities and towns would have had from their own collection of income tax. So they're basically just taking the money. I mean, it's not really their money. This was supposed to be something they did as an efficient, better way to administer than having however many communities there are in Illinois, collecting their own income tax. But this was never supposed to be the state's money. So they've just confiscated it. I mean, it's that simple. And so let's not get sucked into the semantics and the formulas here. This program was created because the state was going to help the communities by making it more efficient for them to collect their own income taxes. Now they've simply taken it. And now they've taken half of it or thereabouts for themselves. So, and this is why we don't count on the state to deliver what we, are supposed to get. This is why we've been running higher reserves. So, just frosts me when I see that. So.
Exactly right, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. This is a discussion, as Director Elva mentioned, the actual vote will be part of the omnibus vote that we take later. So, thanks everybody. Thank you, Director. Turn it back to the Mayor.
Thank you. Now that I've cooled off for a second. Next item on the agenda is two items from Property and Public Lands Committee to be presented by Alderman Goshgarian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This will definitely cool you down. The Property and Public Lands Committee is presenting two items for City Council consideration this evening, which are included in the omnibus agenda, but I wanted to provide some brief introductory comments on them. The first item is the Music Institute of Chicago. This item up for consideration is a second amendment to a license agreement between the city and the Music Institute of Chicago. The Music Institute of Chicago is a community music school that offers music education, concerts, and community fun, and draws students from various North Shore communities and throughout Lake County. The Institute has been occupying a portion of Ohlweiler Hall on Grove campus since the late 2000s. Their current license agreement with the city is set to expire on June 15, and so tonight, the committee brings forward a recommendation for a 5-year extension that would allow them to continue operating at this site. Outside of the term period, the only other change to the existing agreement is the inclusion of an annual escalator provision that allows the city to adjust the license fee by the consumer price index. All other items of the license agreement would remain in effect during this extension, including the city's responsibilities to manage exterior and capital maintenance and annual operating capital expenses for the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing needs. The Music Institute of Chicago has agreed to these terms presented, and I would like to thank them, including Mark George, President and CEO, and Clem Leake, the Lake Forest Campus Director, for their engagement and interest in continuing their partnership with the City of Lake Forest. The second item relates to the Elva Farm Commission. This second item is a follow-up to action related to recent approval of the new lease agreement between the city and the Elva Farm Foundation. The council may recall that this past February, a lease agreement was approved between the City of Lake Forest and the Elva Farm Foundation that, in effect, establishes a traditional landlord-tenant relationship between the parties. Prior to the lease, the Elva Farm Foundation operated under an operating agreement that bestowed to the foundation daily management and maintenance responsibilities of the building and grounds. To aid and assist the foundation in shepherding these duties, an advisory commission of the city council was established to serve as a critical link between the foundation and city council. This public body was comprised of both city-appointed officials and the Elva Farm Foundation board members, and it advised the foundation on these activities and provided recommendations to the city council on various operational, managerial, and financial matters, including annual operating budgets, regular financial monitoring, maintenance expenses, and capital improvements. Recognizing the city was prepared to take on more oversight and supervisory responsibilities for the operation and maintenance of Elva Farm, Dissolution of this commission was contemplated as part of the new lease. While the commission will no longer serve its role, the lease still requires that the foundation submit annual financial reports, including the approved budget and audit, and any proposed improvement or enhancements planned for the year. City staff will continue to work closely and cooperatively with the foundation on these matters, including daily use and operations, and planning both for short and long-term capital needs. And if there are any questions, I think city staff is available to address those now.
I have a question. I have a question going back to the Music Institute lease agreement. I think it's a great idea to have an escalation clause included in there. And I'm just going back to my days on the school board, where when we would enter into certain agreements and put an escalation clause in, we would use what's called a school price index, because some of the expenses related to education were somewhat different than a consumer price index. So it wasn't really relevant for schools. And so I'm just posing the question of whether there might be another index that is more reflective of the actual expenses that could be incurred by the city in terms of construction and maintenance. For example, I think there is a construction price index, and so I'm just asking that question, and especially in light of the current inflation associated with raw materials and construction, I'm wondering if, perhaps we should just take a second look at what index we are using for this. Just posing the question.
Yeah, and I can jump in to just say I think that's good food for thought for us. I feel comfortable given the proposed term of the agreement and the council proceeding with the agreement as negotiated to date, because we do forecast out our perceived capital needs for the next 5 years, and so we're pretty comfortable. That's not to say unforeseen projects can't come up, but I think we have a pretty good grasp on what our anticipated costs will be there, given the overall amount of the rent. Adjusting the escalator by a fairly nominal amount is not likely to produce a significant change in the overall rent. You're right, though, that this does all compound, and we do want to make sure that we're recouping our costs. So my suggestion would be to proceed tonight as is, rather than sort of reopening this back up and re-engaging the Music Institute. But it is a very good point you raised, and certainly something a few years from now we could look at amending if we were running into any problems.
It might be something too, as we move forward. I don't know what's in the hopper in terms of contracts, especially longer term contracts, to just keep that in mind, that there are different price indices out there that may be more applicable to certain contracts than others. And I just think that's important to keep in mind as you move forward, especially on some of these longer term projects, and noting our current inflation that we're experiencing.
Yeah, good suggestion. Thank you.
This is Jed. I just wanted to commend the alderman and the city staff on the Elva work that they've done. It was long in coming and difficult to work through, but it's such an important element in the community that I think we've gotten to a good place. And I just want to thank the alderman and the staff for a good job. Well done.
And by all accounts, they are thriving out there. We were out there picking up some herb seedlings on Saturday or Friday afternoon, and the place was packed. It was the first day of the farmers or the garden market, and it was a busy place, and everybody seemed to be really having a great time. It was.
Yeah, I think they did phenomenal business for their opening weekend of the market, and they actually hosted earlier this month their first farm table dinner, and I think that was a tremendous success and sold out as well. So, yeah, very pleased with the direction there. As Chairman Gashgarian noted, they do still have some financial reporting requirements to the city as part of the new lease agreement, but since we've reassumed the maintenance responsibilities, really the extent of our oversight is ensuring that they're sufficiently solvent to pay the rent, and that's about it. So, hence the need, the lack of need for this commission moving forward.
George, if I could make one more point, I would acknowledge what Alderman Rummel said, and there's great strength in that, and especially when you were serving on the school board. The Music Institute of Chicago has been a very good tenant for us. And not only is there a financial relationship, but there's a good tenant relationship. It does provide an integral component of our greater community. And quite honestly, it's in kind of a sleepy, quiet part of town where we may not have anybody who would be willing to take that lease on. And balancing all of those things out and trying to maintain a good relationship. I would be more concerned with, maintaining what's equitable, which is probably what you were alluding to, I'm sure, and encouraging, a thriving relationship with that institution. But your points are very well taken, Melanie. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on Alderman Gashgarian's report? All right. There being none, I would move on to items for omnibus vote consideration. We have 11 of them tonight. You've heard about a couple of them already. First is approving the extension of the mayor's declaration of a local state of emergency until the next city council meeting. Second is approval of the May 3rd, 2021 city council meeting minutes. Third is approval of a resolution of appreciation for retiring members of boards and commissions as follows. Retiring from the Cemetery Commission, Chairman Dennis O'Brien and David Hook. Retiring from the Legal Commission, Chairman Dale Talkey. Retiring from the Library Commission, President Wendy Darling and Vice President David Rose and Carrie Travers. Retiring from the Park and Rec Board, Shannon McGuire, Melanie Walsh, and Jared Rhodes. From the Senior Resource Commission, Thomas Sullivan. And from the Board of Police and Fire Commissioners, Greg Nikitas and Steve Kernahan. Fourth is approval of a resolution supporting restoration of local government distributed funds revenue from the state. Fifth is approval to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with William Shellhaus Media Services, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $30,075 for professional services related to the operation of the city's public, educational, and government access cable television services. Sixth is approval of an expense in amount not to exceed $36,500 to Lake County Press to provide professional printing services of the city dialogue community-wide newsletter for fiscal year 2022. Seventh is approval of a second amendment to the license agreement between the City of Lake Forest and the Music Institute of Chicago to occupy a portion of Bullweiler Hall located at 40 East Old Mill Road. Eighth is approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 97, Sections 115 through 119 of the City of Lake Forest City Code to dissolve the Elva Farm Commission. Ninth is consideration of a recommendation from the Housing Trust Fund Board in support of an amendment to Section 39.159N of the City of Lake Forest Code to update and clarify language relating to an exemption from obtaining a transfer stamp for designated affordable housing units. Waive first reading and grant final approval of an ordinance. 10 is consideration of ordinances approving recommendations from the Historic Preservation Commission. First reading and if desired by the City Council, final approval. And 11th and last is consideration of ordinances approving recommendations from the Zoning Board of Appeals, first reading, and if desired by the City Council, final approval. Is there any item here that any member of the council would like removed or taken separate?
I have a question, if I may, for Jason about, I don't know the number of the item related to Lake County Press and the cost for the printing of our dialogue. Jason, I don't know if that is the cost anticipating the changes that we're considering to expand the dialogue and change the paper stock. And if it gives us enough room, I just want to make sure it does that. Or if it doesn't do that, that there's flexibility in other areas of our budget to utilize other, other funds if we needed to expand that bandwidth.
Yeah, that's a good question, and the answer is really the latter of those 2 points you made. That wasn't my fire or smoke alarm, thank goodness. No, the amount requested tonight is just reflective of the budgeted amount that was discussed and entertained by the council in March and then again in April. In the event that any changes to the formatting, the size, the material of the dialogue as we move forward later this year, in the event that those changes do increase the pricing, certainly we can fund those through some of our various contingency funds or other areas in the budget.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, I would then entertain a motion to approve the 11 omnibus items as presented.
So moved.
Okay, roll call vote, please, Biddy.
Alderman Morris. Okay, Alderman Karas.
Aye.
Alderman Rummel.
Aye.
Alderman Notes.
Aye.
Alderman Gashagarian.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
7 yeas, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is new business. The item of new business is consideration of a recommendation from the Plan Commission in support of tentative and final plat approval of the Sloan plat of re-subdivision for property at 477 Illinois Road. No additional lots are proposed. This would be an approval by motion. And Director of Community Development, Catherine Cerniak, will make a brief presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The Sloan re-subdivision is really a cleanup to really address actions that have been taken in the past related to this property. The property is addressed as 477 Illinois Road. It is a lot in depth. It's actually 2 lots in depth. It is located on the west side of Illinois Road, backs up to the bike path, and is located generally across from Rosemary Road. In 1978, there was a 2-lot subdivision by a prior owner, Mr. Rasmussen. That lot created 2 lots in depth, one highlighted in yellow and the other to the south. And both of those lots were purchased by the Sloans in 1983. In 1986, the Sloans, who lived in this house, and again, they had acquired both lots 1 and 2. Lot 2 ended generally in this area. In 1986, the Sloans acquired the rear portion of this property on Illinois Road from a prior owner. today, if this kind of land transfer was proposed, what's called a property line shift or an administrative property line adjustment would have been required. And today what we would look at, we would make sure that this property transfer was not creating a non-conforming condition. Back in 1986, it did in fact create a non-conforming condition, was not something that was approved by the city at that time. This property on Illinois Road has since been sold at least once. So the owner of this property currently had nothing to do with this sale. Mr. Sloan recently passed away, and Ms. Sloan is interested in selling off the vacant lot. What this re-subdivision will do is properly align the boundaries of lots 1 and lots 2 to incorporate this parcel that is in the ownership of the Sloans. No additional lots will be created. An appropriate access easement will be extended further, properly aligned to serve this vacant lot 2, along with utilities. Importantly, in the 80s, when the subdivision was originally approved and when the 2 lots were created, 10-foot setbacks all around were established. This subdivision actually updates those setbacks to reflect current code requirements. 40-foot setbacks are required all the way around. Approximately a 3,500 square foot home would be permitted to be constructed on lot 2. Lot 1 is large enough to support the square footage of the existing house. You do have a recommendation from the Plan Commission in support of this requested re-subdivision. The vote on the Plan Commission, there was one dissenting vote on the Plan Commission, and that commissioner was concerned about the existing non-conforming condition of this lot. However, importantly, there is no opportunity for the city at this point to either require the sale of this, all or some of this property back to this property owner, nor is there any way for the city to require the current property owner of this lot to acquire some of this property. So this really is, again, I'll return to where I started. This is a way to clean up what has occurred over a number of years. The subdivision that is proposed is included in your packet, essentially creates lot 1 a little bit larger to support the square footage of the existing house and comply with all code requirements. And again, reconfigures lot 2, taking in that additional land and appropriately configuring the access easement and utilities to extend them a little bit further to reach this lot. So if you choose to do so, it will be appropriate to approve this re-subdivision, the plat of re-subdivision, by motion. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the council? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Sloan re-subdivision plat by motion as recommended by the Plan Commission.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Morris? I think he might have left the screen for a moment. Alderman Karas?
Aye.
Alderman Rommel?
Aye.
Alderman Notes?
Aye.
Alderman Gashagarian?
Aye.
Alderman Bushman?
Aye.
Alderman Weber?
Aye.
In this case, it's 6-0, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, new business, is discussion and direction on whether to establish regulations, requirements, or parameters authorizing food trucks in some capacity in the city. This is a discussion and direction item. This is not going to be a vote, at least for now. And so Director of Community Development Cerniak has a few slides to orient us to the subject.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, again, members of the council. Food trucks. We'll start with, why is this before you tonight? Really, it's before you. We've heard interest from some on the council. We've heard interest from some nonprofits, some private residents. So it really did seem to be an appropriate time to bring this forward to the city council and have a discussion. To date, the city has not had a discussion about food trucks in recent years when there's been an increasing trend to bring food trucks into some communities. As the mayor said, we're not here tonight to discuss any specific regulations. We don't have an ordinance or a proposed code amendment before you, or anything else. We really, as we do with many items, we want to come to the council at the start of thinking about this concept. So we're not expending staff resources and time. We're not expending city attorney time on an item before we know that there's interest from the majority of the council and before we at least get some preliminary direction. So again, just looking for your initial thoughts tonight. Quick review of current code provisions. The current code, and I will acknowledge that these code provisions have probably not been looked at in a number of years, but current code provisions make it unlawful to sell food or beverage from any motor vehicle or cart on a public street or sidewalk. The code requires a license for any fixed or movable food store, and the food store in the code is defined very broadly as any establishment that prepares, offers, stores, and there are a few other verbs in there, but it's a very broad definition. The city code also requires a license for transient or itinerant movable vendors. So currently, when asked the question, and we're not always asked, sometimes food trucks just appear, when we are asked the question, we do state that the current code does not allow food trucks. In considering this topic, assuming you authorize us to do some further due diligence around it, as like many things we discuss, it really is a balance. We have heard concerns from local businesses. We have heard concerns about itinerant vendors, food trucks really having an unfair advantage because they don't invest in making improvements to interior or exterior of a bricks and mortar location. They don't pay rent or property taxes if it's a business owner. Although food trucks who sell in the community should be paying sales tax, we're not aware that they do currently if they're in the community. Obviously, our local restaurants, local food stores do pay sales tax. So there are some concerns about really looking at how do we level the playing field at least a bit. Concerns about public health. We have had recent discussions with Pam Smith in the Lake County Health Department. The health department, as we are, is seeing a number of or a significant increase in contacts about food trucks. Just recently in our conversations, Lake County had been contacted by a number of communities who were just having food trucks appear. So the county is very involved in issuing health licenses for food trucks, whether or not cities have regulations separate from the county. What to consider is locations and frequency. If the council would like us to move forward, are food trucks permitted as they are in some communities on a certain street 2 afternoons a week? Or are we looking at food trucks initially as part of special events or events that the city may plan specifically around food trucks? Also consider nuisance aspects. Again, in talking with the county, they did raise certainly my awareness of some nuisance aspects that really need to be considered and addressed. Really on the flip side, we know that food trucks are trendy right now. There's a great interest in providing food options in communities. They can lead to increased activity or vitality on the street. They can bring in visitors, keep residents in the community as opposed to having them go elsewhere. And it really is something new and different. We also know that there is currently pending legislation around food trucks that may or may not move forward and may or may not limit what the city can do to regulate food trucks. Approaches to regulation. We, again, have not done a full analysis of other communities, but we have contacted a number of communities. And we know there's all sorts of different approaches. Many communities require licenses or permits. As I mentioned, the county does require a health license or a permit, and the county actually categorizes food trucks into low food trucks that simply sell packaged food, medium food trucks that sell hot dogs, hamburgers, and ice cream, and high food trucks that sell something more or cook on site. The county, for categories low and medium, the county issues seasonal permits, good for 6 months. For food trucks that fall into the high category, they issue only permits that are good for 2 weeks. The county does conduct inspections, again, regardless of whether or not a city regulates food trucks. Some communities limit where food trucks can be located. They may specify a certain block, as I said, or I talked with one community today. Rather than have food trucks throughout the community, they've actually identified the parking lot behind City Hall, their village hall in this case, as a location for food trucks. Some communities, in connection with a license or permit, charge an administrative fee. We've had suggestions from some of our local restaurateurs that perhaps there would be one administrative fee, a lower fee for local restaurants who are already established in the community who may want to do a cart or a food truck, and perhaps there's essentially a non-local fee that's a bit higher than those local fees. Some communities, in addition to limiting geographic locations, limit the duration or time. I would say that most communities that we've looked at have some limitation on time or duration. Some communities specify that food trucks can only be at a certain location for 30 minutes. Others allow a 4-hour window. Some communities limit the total number of licenses for food trucks that they issue annually. I believe one of our neighboring communities places a limit of 8 on the number of licenses they issue. Some communities limit food trucks to special events, whether they be for not-profit or profit organizations, whether they be events that the city plans. Some communities only allow food trucks on private properties and only allow them to serve, for instance, employees at a business or anyone coming to that private property. Some communities require insurance and proof of a county health license. I mentioned nuisance issues a few slides ago, and those nuisances relate to noise, perhaps from generators. Again, that goes to perhaps where food trucks are located. Some communities have a requirement that food truck owners must pick up garbage within 100 feet of their vehicle. Others place a limitation on auxiliary features that expand beyond the vehicle itself, such as awnings or tables or chairs or tents or something that might expand the area within which they operate. So those are just not a comprehensive list, but those are some of the types of regulations we've seen so far. And finally, again tonight, we're looking for your direction, and there's a whole spectrum. I've thrown out maintain the status quo, look to allow food trucks at special events on public and private, open to the public and on public property in some manner, which if you give us that direction, we would then work with the city attorney to determine that and bring you back some options, or to permit food trucks more broadly. Obviously, there's a whole continuum from no food trucks to anything goes. Based on our discussion so far, the input we've received, staff is recommending that you give us the ability to really focus on some food truck regulations that would, at least initially, allow food trucks at special events in some capacity. In doing that due diligence, we would reach out again to other communities. We would talk further with the county. We have established a good conversation with them around this issue, and they welcome our input as well. We also want to involve the Chamber of Commerce and our local businesses, as well as food truck vendors. So that's the approach we would take. But tonight, I'm just throwing it back to you, looking for some high-level direction, from do nothing to throw the doors wide open. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Let me provide a little bit more context. I'm not going to I don't want to go too far with this, but to some extent, this conversation has been floating around for a while, but then the fact that Market House is being, is closed this summer for renovation by the Colonial people, and the loss of, activity on the patio in Market Square, the experience we had last year with Southgate, the little street there being closed for some period of time, which was actually very successful. And
George, you're frozen.
Well, while we wait for the mayor to unfreeze, perhaps we can continue the discussion amongst the council. Again, where Kathy left it, just seeking initial reactions from aldermen, with the understanding that if there is general or tentative support for this concept, staff will look to prepare some sample ordinances for the council to consider in the near future.
Jason, if I could start, I'd greatly appreciate it. Conceptually, I like this idea. There's no question that it's going to bring vibrancy to the community. But the devil is always in the details. On one hand, we have restaurants like Authentico, Francesca's, the Gallery, Deer Path Inn. Probably the future La Colonial is not going to feel too threatened by vendors, but this is a non-inclusive list, but Chiefs, the Lanterns, Ferrentinos, the new Donatis, the new Biscottis, Foodstuffs, Left Bank, Subway, Lake Forest Food and Wine, they're all going to feel an impact from this. There's no question about that. I do agree that they are parts of other communities and it does bring vibrancy. I would like to make sure that if we do give, and I think we should ask staff to move forward with it, I would like representatives from that community specifically to be there in on that discussion. And that's just in the central business district. And as I look out to the west side, where restaurants have historically had a harder time making it, I want to make sure that those restaurants are not disadvantaged also. I'm very sympathetic to the local business owners and certainly the discrepancy in terms of overhead. All these restaurateurs in one way, shape, or form are paying taxes. And the big question for me is it reasonable? Do we have access to sales tax revenue? It just does not seem to me to be fair or appropriate for somebody to have a point of sales that's registered in a community that's taxing at a lower rate, and they're taking business away from our vendors. So if possible through legal review, I'd like to know if it's possible to compel them to pay their sales tax revenue in the city of Lake Forest. Additionally, the licensing and processing fee and things like that, I'd like to make sure that there's an equitable means of addressing those issues. You know, the devil always is in the details. And the other thing that Director Cerniak hasn't actually brought up that dawned on me earlier in the conversation was enforcement issues. Who are these enforcement issues going to fall on? Are we going to ask our police officers to go up and check permits? Are we going to have our paramedics checking to make sure that they have their certification from the health department? Are we going to make sure that somebody's there on a designated day when they shouldn't be? And then the other thing to consider is we're in a partnership with Kemper, not only at the golf course, but down at the beach. And indeed, we're going to be competing against ourselves. Again, I offer up all these things as just part of the equation. And again, when this was initially brought to me, you know, after reflection, I still like the idea, but I think in order for me to be fully behind that, all of those issues, specifically the sales tax revenue, the licensing, the enforcement, are really going to have to be addressed and addressed carefully. And I don't think I'm being silly when I say this, but I would not sign off on a mobile flower cart. Okay, I would not sign off on a florist coming from another community setting up in town and having the florists that are an integral part of this community having to compete with them. I think that would be inherently unfair. And I think that's a good analogy with one of my colleagues on council. These are all things that we need to take into consideration. I do realize that vibrancy is an important thing, but right now, I don't think we're lacking in terms of our appeal. And although I'm one to look forward into the 21st century, I think we do have to respect some of the traditions that we do have here in Lake Forest. And one of those has been a prohibition of that, with at least within the public realm. Again, I'm not saying no, but I want Director Cerniak to hear, at least from my seat in the 3rd Ward, that there are a lot of details that need to be worked out. And it is possible, but I think we really need to be very thoughtful and considerate and be willing to revisit this in a year or two, along with feedback from our local patrons and restaurateurs, as well as the chamber, and see what this, how this has panned out. And we shouldn't be afraid to move into something and then also willing to back out if we think that's what's best for the city of Lake Forest. Forgive me for my very long-winded comments, but thank you, Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to indulge.
Well, I'm not sure who was mayor at that point because I lost my internet connection along the way, and I'm not sure where I got cut off, but
we didn't hear most of it.
Did you? You did or did not?
We did not.
You did not. Okay. Well, I think Alderman Goshgarian touched on the point being, you know, we do have plus or minus 1,000 new families in town in the last 2 years. They're a disproportionate. We don't know. I don't have the data on this, but I can tell by looking around that most of them are young people with kids looking for things to do. And we have, you know, our signature outdoor space in town, which is the, in terms of, you know, dining anyway, which is the patio at Market House, which is going to be inactive this summer. So it just all sort of led to, hey, how can we maintain good activity in and around town? How can we activate some spaces in town that are not active, like, let's say for a moment, the West Train Station parking lot? You know, are there, you know, how, what, and this, and then how, and absolutely, how do we incorporate this in a way, or something like this in a way that includes and supports our local businesses, as opposed to just being outright, you know, advantaged competition, which is not fair. And so, you know, we definitely want to provide opportunities for our local businesses, be they flower carts or food trucks, to, you know, to compete, maybe not on such a level playing field. You maybe we need to give them some advantages or some special consideration. So all of that, but that's where it came from, was it all started in, I'm sure it's been kicking around for a while, but it really was brought to the front by the fact that our most active outdoor space from a dining point of view in Lake Forest is going to be inactive this summer. And a crucial reopening summer with 1,000 new families in town. So we have the potential to be a lot sleepier than we're known for being, and we're known for being pretty sleepy. So, Alderman Notes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, Alderman Gashgarian raised a lot of important points, and I don't disagree. From my personal perspective, however, I view the addition of food trucks as being really an additive dining experience. If I'm looking to go out for a table dinner experience, I'm going to be using our brick and mortar stores. It's the alternative of, am I making a sandwich at home, or am I going to go find an opportunity to enjoy a meal down at the beach that I might, I can honestly say nothing against our snack shop at the beach, but I'm not going to the beach to have a meal. And so I really view that with the right precautions, and again, I don't dismiss the importance of getting the input of our local restaurateurs, but I really see this as creating a whole new untapped dining experience in town that should not threaten the brick and mortar establishments.
Alderman Bushman.
I'd like to maybe ask a question for clarification. You talk about the food trucks, or you talked about the prohibition being applicable to public streets or sidewalks, but didn't cover parking lots. I'm wondering, to what extent have we had experience with food trucks at our special events? For example, Lake Forest Day, when we had it, those events, haven't we had food trucks at times for special events, Kathy?
There have been food trucks in the community. I believe for 4th of July, we use local vendors. So those are restaurants that already have health licenses. There was a recent special event where one or more food trucks showed up, and actually we received calls from the county asking about those. So I think there have been situations where food trucks come in. Spending some time thinking this through could actually give us some clarity, and perhaps again could allow us to coordinate with the county health department to put a process in place so that we know who is coming to town, so that we have verified that they have health licenses, that we're sure they get proper inspections. So to some extent, looking at this language could help us set some clearer parameters in place. Currently, we just say no, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. We know people do work at their houses without permits. So is there a way we can strengthen the code that would give us more ability to put parameters around food trucks, as was mentioned by Alderman Gashgarian?
Right, and very insightful comments by Alderman Gashgarian and the mayor in terms of these different issues. And to me, in a way, they're influenced by that chart that you had, Kathy, do nothing or open it totally up. And it's a sliding scale. And again, I come back to special events. Maybe if we just focus in on special events, we don't have some of the impacts we're concerned about in, twice a week, 3 days a week, or whatever, showing up on different city streets. I see the issues being varied somewhat. So to that extent, it may be helpful to look at it in terms of the different scale that you can involve food trucks in the community. And it may be where we start out very slow and build up from there. But certainly there are a lot of interesting questions. And if it adds additional vibrancy that Alderman Notes says, and I think it does, it can bring, because don't forget, we're not just talking about competing against our restaurants. There's restaurants in the neighborhood around, in the suburbs around us. And, you know, there are a lot of people that head west, head north, head south, head to Highwood, head to Vernon Hills, you know, for restaurants. And to the extent that they're looking for the food truck type of thing, maybe we can offer it here. So a lot of interesting questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to, first of all, I think we had food trucks, as I recall, at one of the Oktoberfest events where somebody brought in some German food there.
Yep.
I know that there was a food truck this winter outside the Pennies from Heaven store over the Christmas break for a couple of days, and they were selling hot chocolate and cookies, I think. And I welcomed it. I thought it was really a lovely experience, and it was well received. So I would like to see us explore this. And I think there are ways to mitigate, for example, the impact on our local restaurants. I think you could, for example, be very limited in the number of licenses you give out, maybe limited to 8 or 10, as I think Kathy suggested. And maybe you offer those licenses initially to our local restaurants. You know, in the past, it seems that I recall the Left Bank being out there selling pizza at some event from a truck. You know, maybe Authentico would like to pick up and offer tacos out of a truck at some of these events. I'm not sure that I see this. You know, I think we should go slowly, and maybe it's just at special events and at very limited times, because I just don't see a lot of people going uptown to buy a meal from a food truck unless you're there for some other purpose, for example, for a special event. And there, I think it's a nice adjunct to say the art fair that's happening, or the tree lighting, having food trucks out there for that event. I think that could be terrific. And you know, you know, so maybe you grab something from the food truck for the kids, and then you go out to a restaurant after the babysitter comes. So I think there are ways to, and I like Alderman Gashgarian's idea of bringing representatives from those restaurants into the discussion so that they can sort of come up with their own solutions. But I do like the idea of giving them sort of first dibs on having food trucks out there. You know, when I think of the beach, you know, we're selling liquor down there at certain hours, and I don't even think the snack shop is open in the evenings down at the beach. So again, an opportunity to not negatively impact Kemper Sports down there, but yet have a nice experience at the beach a couple of nights a week where you can grab a beer or a glass of wine and have food trucks in the parking lot there. Might be a great idea. So just, you know, I think we can work around it. I like the idea. I think we go slowly. I think we have to bring a lot of people into the conversation, but I think we can do it, and I think we can do it appropriately. So those are just some of my preliminary thoughts on the topic. Thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you.
I also have a few comments to add. My experience with food trucks, they're not all created equal. So I don't know, I guess this would be a question, Kathy, for you, is how we would, you know, I guess establish, you know, high standards or criteria that would, you know, that really reflect sort of the quality of our community. And then the other thing is, if you issue a license, is it a per event or per week? Because I think it would be, I do think the way to proceed down this path, and I am definitely in favor of it, because, you know, I think it does diversify the portfolio of dining in the city of Lake Forest. But I also think that it should be aligned very specifically to special events. And not just, you know, haphazard, you know, I don't know, someone gets a Saturday, someone gets a Sunday, you know, but we've talked about, the possibility of reintroducing a farmer's market, maybe some type of a high-end farmer's market on at the West Lake Forest train station, and in conjunction with that, it would be, really terrific if people could come and shop produce and artisans and local bakers, and also stay with their families and have a bite to eat in the parking lot over there, to make it, something, more of a festival with the farmers market. We've also talked about creating a really interesting family bicycle festival, and to have people bike routes from the lake side of our city to the forest side of the city and back. And if we had stops along the way, it would be really great to have food trucks established at designated areas. So I'm absolutely in favor of pursuing, in a very sort of, constructive and controlled way, identifying, very high-end food trucks. And I don't know if there's a way, again, to sort of rank them, or if there is some kind of a ranking of food trucks. But so I would love to have you think through that a little bit more carefully.
Alderman Weber.
Thank you. I had conversation with Jason, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so, that a number of residents in the 4th Ward had approached me about this food truck concept and said, Eileen, can we get something happening in West Lake Forest? We've had John DeRosier's 2 restaurants open up, which have been fabulous. Every time I go by, there's people out on the patio, and it seems like the Everett Farms is pretty full when you go. I've had lunch a couple of times there. And then I thought back to Alderman Bushman had always said to me how pre-COVID, we had started to have events at the train station, and then COVID hit, and we had to stop those type of events from happening for now. Alderman Goshgarian brought up a number of really well thought out issues that I think we need to work through. In fact, I appreciate the comment about the flower truck, because there actually is someone in Highland Park who has one and has been coming to a business in Lake Forest and posting her flower truck and selling to Lake Forest businesses. And to Alderman Karas's point, a farmer's market is just as competitive to, if you've got someone like Leiter's Greenhouse or a farmer in Wisconsin bringing flowers in, that's just as competitive to a business like mine, or like Amade's food market, or to Elva's food market. So I do agree that there's a balance, and that we need to be very sensitive to our brick and mortar business owners, because we certainly don't want to have a great impact on them. But I also believe that there are different demographics of people who enjoy shopping at all of those different types of venues. And so you have to strike a balance. I really love the sound of the council tonight in saying, let's start slow, let's think about it, research it. I just had a quick question, because every once in a while I remember having an ice cream truck that's come through town. And, hearing kind of the policies in which they stand now, maybe that's not really appropriate. But I can't tell you how amazing it was for Lasker Estates to have an ice cream truck come every Sunday at 7 p.m. The community spirit that was brought within this neighborhood and meeting all the families with kids was incredible. And I hope that would be maybe one idea that would have a designated time or event or place where we can have things that was not impactful to other businesses. So my thought is, let's try it. Maybe it's Thursday night at Westlake Forest train station. And maybe it's not Mexican food. Maybe it's not tacos. So we're not competing against the station. Maybe it's something else that's not being offered right there within that area. But I love seeing so many young families with kids out in strollers and bicycles. By the way, there's a huge wait list on bicycles through Kittles. That whole industry has just been booming. And we'll see, the restaurants right now are pretty full. You can't get in. Try to get a call over the Deer Path Inn. They're only accepting so many people. I think until these waves open back up 100%, people are looking for outlets. So great work. I look forward to hearing more of the wonderful comments that come forward.
Yeah, and I'll just note too that I appreciate all the feedback from all the aldermen. Obviously, we did not come prepared with any specifics, but more just seeking direction as to whether this is something the council wanted staff to flesh out and pursue further. And it seems like there's some consensus to at least explore it. There's also been some very helpful feedback on areas of focus and potential concerns. So, you know, obviously happy to continue to receive further input, but if it pleases the council, I think certainly staff has direction, sufficient direction to go ahead and move forward and try to draft something that we can bring back for your consideration at a near future meeting.
Great. I do want to go at this in a deliberate fashion, but I don't want to go too slow. I mean, in terms of getting something decided, because the summer is here, and we can't spend all summer talking about it, or we'll lose an opportunity that I think is, with the reopening and with all the new people in town, I'm not sure we're going to get another shot at doing something good here. I mean, obviously we can always do this sometime in the future, but this summer seems to be an important opportunity for us to show some what's the word? Some excitement and some vibrancy and some positive movement and some movement away from our stodgy image.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just one comment, because I really love the discussion we're having, and I think there's incredibly thoughtful input here. I would ask if it's possible, if Director Cerniak, if she's able to cobble something together, if we can put a sunset clause on this amendment or on this legislation, and as we get through the summer months and into the fall, something that would compel us to revisit this with some data in hand from the previous, meaning upcoming summer, and try and improve upon, what we started with. Because I think we're all working to a common goal. Just want to make sure that we're all sensitive. And again, bringing other stakeholders in at this juncture might be somewhat challenging, but if we could put a finite period of time on this and then revisit it in late fall and in the winter time, and then possibly give it more direction.
That's absolutely. I mean, in terms of just speaking for myself, I agree. This is something that's going to be evolving. We won't get it right the first time. I guess I'd rather err on the side of being a little more open and pulling it back than going, at a snail's pace and having something that doesn't really get anybody's attention as a result. So that's just me talking, but we can always and should absolutely revisit this, because we're not going to get it right the first time. We'll learn. So
I will say to the mayor's point, I'm confident we can have something for the council to consider next month.
Great. Okay. If there are no further comments on that, the next item on the agenda is additional items for discussion or general comments by council members. Do we have any council members that have anything they'd like to share or raise?
Mr. Mayor, I do. I'd like to just have a quick review of the marvelous beach cleanup day that we had on April 17th. It was a wonderful Saturday, a little on the chilly side, but that didn't deter anyone. We had a crew of people down at the beach from 11:30 to 3:30. We had to limit the number. We could have oversubscribed this probably 3 times. We limited it to 50 participants, and we had to turn people away. So that shows you how, the success of something, an initiative like this. The real thought behind this was to not only clean up the beach, but also it was a great opportunity for education about plastics and the amount of plastics that are in our Great Lakes. It's not just a problem of our oceans, but there is a tremendous amount of plastic waste dumped into the Great Lakes every year. And in fact, Lake Michigan and Lake Huron are the most polluted of the Great Lakes in terms of plastics. It's phenomenal the amount that is pulled out of Lake Michigan. There are similar beach cleanups that are sponsored by the Shedd Aquarium every year. In fact, they have quite an initiative on plastic awareness. And so in order to do this, we tapped into some of our local non-for-profits, specifically Lake Forest Open Lands and Green Minds of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff and the League of Women Voters, and they sent us some of their finest educators to help us with this day. Among those were, I think we have a list of them on a slide, don't we, Layla? There we go. Marion Cartwright was there from Lake Forest Open Lands. Wiebke Droge volunteered, Julie Kinraid, Katie Anderson from the League of Women Voters, and Peter Gordon from Lake Forest Open Lands. It was inspiring to hear all of them speak. In fact, there were people on the beach who joined us. They hadn't signed up necessarily. We had a few vacancies of no-shows, and they grabbed a bucket and joined us, and were very thankful for the education. Some of them were parents with young children, and they sat through the presentations and were very engaged with the whole thing. So thank you to those organizations. It was a wonderful collaboration among all of our environmental organizations and not-for-profits in the city. And a special shout out to Layla Werner, who really coordinated this whole thing. There were multiple meetings of this group in order to pull something like this off. And Layla really was the leader and coordinator for this event. And I think it was well received by everybody. And thank you to Mike Strong as well for his leadership on this. And then I was going to ask Layla to just maybe, if she's on, take a few minutes to talk about some of the feedback and the possibility of doing this again in the future. Layla, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Alderman Rummel, and thank you, members of the City Council, for having me here today to speak. So after we did have this event, the group did have a debrief, and I'm sure you saw from the photos, even though it was a pretty small event, you know, about 35 of the 50 people who signed up showed up, and even though the beach looked pretty clean, we still did collect a lot of garbage on the beach, and there were a lot of microplastics collected. However, because the city was doing a lot of restoration in the area, there wasn't as much to clean up. So we did discuss, you know, for future events, how to kind of coordinate at a time where there would be maybe a little bit more to clean up for the group. But other than that, it was very well received. And it was a great time for us to, you know, educate the community and teach people that there are these tiny little nurdles in the sand, and there's these tiny little microplastics that are impacting our environment. So definitely looking forward to potentially planning future events.
Is this something you could do in other locations around town as well?
That was definitely something that was discussed by the group. I know there were a lot of issues with trash being on the side of the road or in specific parks. So that was definitely something that was discussed with the group.
Are there any other questions?
Just thank you. Just thank you so much. It's, you know, having a town that's committed to Earth Day and environmental issues and issues of sustainability is so important and so relevant to everybody who lives here, but particularly younger people who I think are taking a real serious look and interest and being stewards of the environment and having opportunities for them to participate in town in ways like this is just so important. So thank you to you, Melanie, and to you, Layla, for making this happen.
Yeah, the environment here is definitely one of our treasures, and it deserves our full attention. So Any other members of the council that would like to raise anything or educate us further? All right, there being none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.